Hey everyone, Stegar here and welcome back to Hunterville. So over the last few episodes we're generally working sort of in amongst the area of the city here, and for this episode I decided that I'd change things up because I don't really like the size of this river here that cuts through the city. It's just like way too wide for a river in general even, but especially in City Skylines it kind of changes the whole scale of things. So that's going to be the main focus of this episode, is to sort of narrow this river down, because it's currently, if I measure it across, this is probably like the widest point, so it's probably not reflective, but it's like 400 meters wide and that just seems a bit excessive to me. So we're going to come in today and narrow this down to something more reasonable, and possibly work along some houses in this area along the waterfront of the new river to just try and fill things in. And the first thing I started by doing was going to the western end of the map and just start dragging out this network river down roughly through where the existing river was, but not exactly. Then just took that through the city there, and you'd see there's a little bit more space that we'll have to work with between the city centre and the river. So that will also need to be filled in and everything. And they're just kind of weaving the river over to the edge of the map. And here now we're terraforming the land around the new river, because the old river was quite deep and just quite large and a mess. So there I was taking that mountain and just building some more of the ridgelines and things. And now we're going through and trying to start getting the water running down here. I think I sped this footage up a lot because the water doesn't actually run that fast, but just wanted to see how it'd work, do a little bit of testing as I went through here. I'm not sure if I had to add any water spawn points in the in-betweens. It's actually been a while since I recorded at least this part of the episode. I think I was working on this in like 2022, so that goes to say how old the footage is, I guess. But yeah, just more terraforming, adding in some more little bits and pieces on this mountain. And then now we're moving over closer to the city, and here I was using Move It to kind of pick the endpoints of where I wanted, and then using the network multi-tool slope function to slope the rivers down nicely from one point to the next, only changing slope every so often. I think it was a little bit steeper where that mountain is just because of the way that I terraformed the land. And here connecting up some little side rivers and things into this main river too, all just feeding into there. I think that one goes through undeveloped part of the city just beyond where we've built previously. And here you can really see the extent of the old river, and it looks like it was 20 or 30 meters deep just looking at the contour lines on that last shot. And here just coming through, I already had this river here from previously. I think I added this a few episodes ago at some point in time, but just changing that up a bit. I'm not really sure what my motivation was, but I felt like it was a bit too meandering and going back on itself, so just extending out this curve here. And in the next episode we actually put a park sort of in that almost like a 3/4 circular area, and just connecting it up to the larger river. I think the intersections of these network rivers don't actually work out so well, as you could probably have just seen there. So I think off camera I tidied all those up. And there was another river on the map too, or at least on this part of the map, that kind of joins into that main river, so I was just dragging that out there. And now just coming around, finishing this off using a slightly wider river, given that two smaller rivers combine, it would make sense to have the larger river here, and then just dragging off the end just out of the edge of the map. So hopefully I added in a little comparison between what things look like before and after in between these sections of the video, but it actually made quite a difference in terms of the overall landscape and everything, changing that river there. And I was sort of basing the river off smaller rivers around areas like Hamilton and Palmerston North in New Zealand, and little smaller places with sort of mid-sized rivers that aren't super significant. And going back to what's happening on screen, now we have this area between the existing parts of the city and the river line, plus we also changed a little bit of the terraforming, so some of these areas need a bit of reworking. But what we're doing here now is adding in some new houses that I created in the asset editor, or I mean someone created the models, I just did the detailing of like the trees and the landscaping around there. And my overall vision with this was to have different sets of houses for like each decade up until now, but that was complicated by the announcement for a new game known as City Skylines 2 when I was preparing this, plus I had a few other things going on outside of this, like in real life, that meant that I couldn't upload videos very frequently last year. So I think this footage was actually recorded in like May or something, because I prepared all these houses and everything, created like this nice set for like early 1900s homes, like old bungalows, single story things. There's a lot more housing variety out there now than what there was a few years ago when I first did my first iteration of asset editor houses, but now there's a lot more there. And here, just coming through in some more blocks and deleting all these asset editor houses. I'm questioning why I'm showing this much, but I am kind of skipping through it too with some fancy transitions as well. I think here is where there starts to sort of be a transition from like one set of houses to the next, and they've like lots of collections with like subtle variations, such that I planned it out that, you know, I'd dump all the one set of houses in one place, move to the next, and you gradually get this transition to like sort of mid-century homes and really like modern suburban homes that were built in like the past couple of decades. But that's never going to happen because of City Skylines 2 and my otherwise limited time. But here, basically clearing out this suburb. I think this was the very first suburb I ever built, and at that time I was using a very small collections of homes, all from the same set, and they all had white roofs, so it'd be nice in this area to finally get some variation in the roof colors so that it doesn't all look like super monotonous. Plus just working around all the existing bits and pieces, little parks. There's that little sort of 2-story apartment flat type building there as well that I'm leaving in place. And here just going through again with more houses. For these ones I only did fences on one side, whereas my original concept for asset editor houses was to have some very complicated system of like some houses had fences on both sides and some didn't, and some had fences at the back and some didn't, and it just made it really complicated. But anyway, here's the last bits of going through and showing the houses that I added in. I added in a lot more off camera, but I've rambled on for long enough, so I'm not going to show any more of that. And now we're moving into the section of the video where we actually start building like proper new parts of the city. And here just going for a grid layout, or at least sort of long grids, not like fully perfectly square grids, and just changing the widths a little bit so I can get some variety in buildings and have like a mix of the backlot houses, which I created for this style as well, and amongst just, you know, houses that are back to back and all face the road. Working around this river, I decided just to go for a straight road with curves rather than trying to perfectly follow the curvature of the river, as I felt like that would be a lot more simple to actually implement and construct. And here around, you can't see it on top of the screen now, but the highway goes through there, and I just decided to create the city grid as if the highway didn't exist. And in some hypothetical world where I do actually complete the city, at a later date I'd come through and demolish parts of this neighborhood to fit that highway through. And here just creating this block in this space that has kind of an awkward angle because it gets a little bit narrow there. And now just connecting up with the rest of things. And then in a second we'll move on to sort of expanding out the wider road network into the areas that are currently countryside but would hypothetically fit the extra portions of the city. I think you can tell by all these words like hypothetical and things that I'm pretty much sure that I've got it set in my head that because of City Skylines 2, I'm never really going to work on the city much more. I have recorded 1 and a bit more episodes before I stopped playing the game for City Skylines 2. I am really uncertain as to whether I'll build more in the city. Part of me wants to, but also part of me doesn't, because the sort of level of detail in the city is already quite high, and that takes a long time to build and sets a standard for anything that I would continue to build in the city. And here you can see me working on the road layouts. I decided to have a really gradual curve coming around from this like external highway and connecting up with the rest of the city. There was an old road network here, but I decided to change that because it wasn't really that sort of sensible, I guess, in a way. And then just on this road, connecting it up with another curve and trying to make it so the intersection was at right angles with all the intersecting roads. And now with the foundation of the road layouts for this neighborhood set out, I just used a road to work out exactly how far this goes out from the city to sort of estimate what building styles to use here. I think here I'm going for the ones marked as 1900s, which I created in my own system, which I explained in a previous part of this video. And just going through, filling up these blocks, trying to also keep a little bit of variety in ways. Like one side you've got the 4 deep houses, and on the other side you've got 3x2 houses, all with backlots behind them. My original ideas for this was that actually housing lots typically aren't just 32 meters deep as you get in City Skylines 1, but can be deeper, and I found that on like Google Maps and things a lot too, that houses were typically deeper. So my compromise was to do these sort of doubled up sections up to 6 cells deep, because the like front sort of row of cells in the backlots is within 4 cells of the road. They actually still work, although I have noticed that they've been complaining about no roading connections or something, but they still function. It's just annoying complaints for nothing really, but I understand why the game is a bit confused. But Anyway, that has since been resolved by City Skylines 2, of course, giving up to 6 zoning cell deep lots for houses and things. And here, just creating a little neighborhood park. I decided to add in this basketball court, as well as a few of these benches around the place, a few rubbish bins, and then come through here with trees and just tidy up around the edges. I do like to keep a little bit of open green space with parks. I feel like I have a tendency to just cover everything with trees or props or just anything that will make it not look like there is any open grass. Or I think it's turning out that in this park I just covered it with trees, but there's another park that I build later in this episode which doesn't face the same fate as this. And here, right up to the river, I just decided to go for sort of these branching off cul-de-sac roads. It's not really deep enough to fit like another parallel road or anything. And then just at the very end of here, I thought, well, since we're so close to the river, wouldn't it be a good idea to have like a bike path or something? And I was basing this off like a pedestrian path, or it might even be a bike path in Hamilton, New Zealand, which runs alongside the river there. And then the connection to the main road was a little bit difficult because of the terrain changes, but managed to get it looking relatively good. And then just going around the edge of the path with some trees and things, and I think closer to the riverbank I actually went for some smaller shrubs in some places, with a mix of trees and things just to kind of vary it up. And we're now into the next section of the video, just expanding out the suburb a little bit more, starting off by taking a terraforming network to create a stop bank. I'm not sure if I did this on the other parts of this path as well, but just wanted to create like a stop bank separate from the height of the riverbank and have this path running along the top. It was actually a lot more complicated than it might look, because you had basically 2 networks in the same place and they were kind of difficult to get like the picker tool thing to pick them and move it and manipulate them and everything else, but I'm just rambling. And then decided to put some tennis courts here. This is another park that we're working on. So there's 4 tennis courts here, no club rooms or anything for like a proper tennis club, which might have been a bit of oversight, but it certainly fills in the space. And then the way that the ground was around these tennis courts, it was the pavement, so I think I just put another line of the pavement surfaces down beside that to sort of continue that through. With the city, I'm not using Surface Painter. Obviously, if I had Surface Painter, I could just make the pavement disappear. I stopped using that a long time ago because occasionally I would trigger whatever case it may be that causes it to all disappear, and I kept doing that too often that I just decided that it wasn't worth it. And here I thought it'd be nice to have some like little dirt trails down onto the riverbank where people might have gone to go like fishing, or I don't really know. I'm not sure if you want to fish in that river given that there's a city around it and usually water quality's not that great, but just some little paths kind of mixed in with the trees made out of the ruined texture to make it appear like people were going down to the river in various places and just trying to give it a bit more variety. Probably doesn't look like exactly like how I described it, because it might have been better to use like dirt decals or something for like the common footstep paths and everything. And here just again expanding out more and more suburbs, and I think we're now at the point where we're sort of getting off to the west a little bit, and this is really joining in with the existing suburb rather than the sort of separate suburb that was to the south of the CBD along that main road, but we're now maybe like 1.5 kilometers from the middle of town, so actually quite a way out in terms of the overall scale of the city, but still not super impressive from a real life standpoint. And here just going on with some ferns and various trees and things. I think I made a brush and surface painter specifically for sort of lower height shrubbery and things for the city, as well as sort of your medium-sized trees that I'd used in the city, and then larger trees which I'd previously used sort of on the wider outer map to make it look a lot more packed with foliage and things. And here where this path connects up to the road, I just decided to do some manual detailing of some of these lots which were a little bit awkwardly shaped. But we've now reached the end of the time lapse, so if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. I have spent a little bit of time away from uploading this style of City Skylines videos, so if you want to see more of this, and specifically this city perhaps, because it's not facing such a good fate given City Skylines 2, make sure to comment that you've enjoyed this one and you want to see more of it, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.